Passion Harvest.
Hello, passionate listeners, and welcome to Passion Harvest. My name is Patrick Herbert, and I am the host of your show, International Passion Ambassador. I've got a really exciting guest today, and if you like this interview, please subscribe. My incredibly exciting and incredibly inspiring guest today is someone who you may recognize. Her name is, of course, Luisa, and where you would know her as the host of the amazing podcast, Passion Harvest. Today, she is not the host, but is here as the guest. The reasons for this are simple. The viewers of Passion Harvest want to know. They have requested this interview, and we have teamed up to make this happen. Every episode, we see her beautiful face and beautiful accent, asking beautiful questions and getting beautiful answers. But who is Luisa really? What makes her tick? We know that her passion, or we know what her passion is, but what inspired her to that passion? And today is the day we're going to find out, and I'm truly honored to be the one giving the interview. So, Luisa, welcome to Passion Harvest, your show. Good to have you as a guest.
Why, thank you. That was such a beautiful introduction, Patrick. And thank you for being my interviewer today. I'm a bit nervous, but I kind of figure it's karmic because I'm such a nice interviewer that it's going to be an awesome, juicy episode. So I'm ready to dive right in. I've had lots of emails, people wanting to know, I guess, about me since I'm always interviewing people. Yeah, what makes me tick? What is my story? What is my background? And how did I live my dream life? How did I live a passionate life? So, yeah, I'm ready to share that. I you might not know this about me, but I'm actually quite a private person. But since this conversation is only between us. But my reasons are to share part of my journey, pieces of me and parts of my story, is that so it may inspire others to find their passion and follow their bliss and embrace the journey of life.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome. Good to have you on your show. So I don't want to waste any time over here. Let's see. This is about as equivalent as you get to a live episode because, like you said, you're going to post it right after we're done. So that's exciting. We get to see instant results. So let's begin. All right, Luisa, let's go back to your childhood. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Was there anything out of the ordinary? Was it pretty traditional upbringing?
This is a question I always ask my guests, and it's so hard now being the interviewee. Pivotal moments. I was thinking about it, and look, I had I had a great childhood. My parents actually separated when I was 6, and I can't even imagine them being together. When I think back about some sort of metaphysical or spiritual experiences, I think all children have that capability. And I've obviously spoken to lots of guests on the show about the right brain and the frontal lobe cortex as it closes as we mature and how it's not nurtured by those that don't understand. I think probably when I was younger, around about 8 or 10, the pivotal moment for me is my parents didn't believe in immunization. And I got German measles, but also measles at the same time. And for 10 days, I just remember being so sick in bed, and I actually thought I was going to die. I remember snippets of it. I remember my father carrying me to an ice bath to cool my temperature down. I remember wanting spaghetti bolognese toasted sandwiches. I don't know why my grandmother used to make them. I don't eat meat anymore, but I kept asking for it. And I remember, and they kept saying, okay, but it never came because obviously I was even too sick to eat. I could barely drink water. And it was an out-of-body experience. I do remember getting very, very big and very, very small. It was almost as if I was energetically upgrading and my energy was flowing out. So that was quite a pivotal experience in my life. And after that point in time, I started connecting with, not by want or not by desire. I was still too young. And, I started connecting with ghosts or spirits. And for a young girl with parents that had no inclination towards that, it was kind of scary. I remember, so after I've recovered from the illness, obviously I'm still here, I would have this ghost or this spirit every night as I closed my eyes and lay down on the bed. And this happened for about 10 years, and it would talk to me, but nothing recognizable. It was almost like it was singing, but the singing got louder and louder. And every time I sat up, it stopped. Or every time I had someone to lie next to me, it stopped. So I would beg my father often to lie next to me and hold my hand until I fell asleep, and it wouldn't happen. It eventually stopped in about my mid-teens, but I did ask a psychic a couple of years ago, what was it? And she said, your psychic abilities were so open, and there was a spirit, not necessarily negative, one that was lost and didn't know how to communicate, and saw that you had some sort of ability or some openness to the astral or the ether to try and get your attention in some way. But for a child, it was pretty scary, and I still do today. Sometimes, I catch myself, I sleep with a blanket over my ear. It's just a habit, and it never happens now. And obviously, I'm very different. I know how to protect myself, and I'm a completely different, much greater person than I was that little girl. But I guess that's my younger experiences, just to express that.
Wow, that is incredibly fascinating. Truly, it is, because that's a rare occurrence, and that, especially for you, that sets the stage for what's to come as an adult. So obviously, with these experiences, you were very receptive to the supernatural, to metaphysical occurrences and such. Tell us a little bit about the young you, through the college years. Like as a young woman, what were you like? What was going on in your life?
I was terrible. I really was terrible. I think, I hit that teenage stage and looked around at my peers, and, all spiritual stuff just went out the door, and I was interested in going out to parties and like just climbing out the window. And I feel sorry for my poor mother now, actually. Yes. And then I hit 19 and I moved to Byron Bay, which is a beautiful, coastal town, and I was kind of like an upmarket hippie, if you want to call it that. And I tried everything and went to see gurus and all those sort of things, but I still wasn't confident with Luisa. I didn't know who Luisa, looking back, I didn't know who Luisa was, and I probably didn't know what I want. And it's an ever evolving process, and I'm still learning. And then I think I just followed what other people wanted too much. I never trusted, and I'm only learning to do it now. I'm still learning. I'm to trust what feels right for me, to trust my inner guidance, to trust my intuition. And I wish I'd done it sooner, but then I guess I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't had those learning lessons along the way.
Well, awesome. Okay, so one of the things I know about you is you had a first marriage and you have two wonderful daughters. So tell us a little bit about that first marriage. I believe that this happened to be catalyst for further growth. Well, pretty much everything is catalyst for growth. So tell us a little bit about that story.
Just to set the record straight, the first marriage, there's only been one. So
yeah, okay. The first,
just wanted to clarify that. I was evaluating that, and it was a very troubled time looking back. I realized, I absolutely gave my freedom away. I guess I was in my mid-20s and, wanted to have children and get married. And when I gave myself away to the highest bidder, I don't even like that terminology, but when I was in love with the idea of falling in love. And I guess I was so out of touch with myself, I didn't stop to think. And, it happened very quickly, and we married and had children. And I lost myself slowly in that marriage, as many women and very many men do as well, with children and marriage. And it became a vicious cycle of unhappiness and fear of so many things and so many ridiculous things. And I'm always believe of the premise that 100%, this is what I work with my clients on, that we do create our reality, and I take 100% responsibility for that. Looking back, it was not a happy marriage. It was a karmic marriage. He was not always a kind man at all, but I'm utterly grateful. I'm utterly grateful for those lessons, because again, I wouldn't be the person I was today. And if I held on to that victim mentality, which again, I coach with so many of my clients, that, if you hold on to that victim mentality, you're never going to be free. You can never move forward in your life until you're utterly grateful. for all the lessons and all the learning lessons and the challenges and conflicts along the way that make you the person that you are right now at this point in time.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's so true. Everything you're saying, and I understand that story too. And what you're saying is absolutely true. When it comes to men, also lose themselves, and that's what happened to me
Yeah.
in my first marriage.
You know, so many
Okay, so
people, I mean, I just got the visual that, you know, all the time, the whole time, I was trapped and I held the key around my neck, and everyone holds their own key to the jail cell.
mhm.
We hold it ourselves, but, you know, we get trapped in these sort of narrow patterns of reality. And we never realize that we can actually choose to be free.
That is so very true. Okay, so now let's get to the best part of
Oh
this
my God, what's
interview.
the next question?
Well, of course, we as Passion Harvest makes an impact, and
Yep.
there have been a lot of very good guests on it. So,
Including
and we
yourself.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was completely honored to be a guest, as I am completely honored to be the host. Um, so and how you came across me, you came across one of my articles and reached out to me, and all these other wonderful people and the amazing stories from near death experiences, which I've noticed seem to trend a little bit higher in terms of viewers
Mhm.
on your site. Okay, so you've been asking all of us how we got to our passion. What about you? How did this come about? Where did Passion Harvest, Luisa, I wanna do Passion Harvest come from? How did this become your passion?
Well, I mean, looking back, it's very easy. I always talk about passion. You know, it's your passion is your internal guidance system. It's what makes you feel good. It's what lights you up. It's what brings you joy when you jump out of bed. And so often we forget to follow those patterns because we're so entrenched in the life that we're living. We're so out of touch that we actually do live in a hologram, and everything is a mirror, and we do create our reality. So I guess the pivotal point was I was in a corporate role in a very unhappy, unhealthy marriage, and I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know what to do. Obviously, looking back, I could have just jumped, but maybe I'm a slow learner, and at the time I was fearful. I was very fearful. You see, fear is such a low vibration, and it holds us captive in so many ways. And I realized I had to change my life. And I guess the main principles and foundations that I worked on is, number one, that I do create my reality. Number two, I had to get happy. And it sounds really easy, but it's hard. It's hard to be happy all the time when you're in a unhappy, loveless marriage and in a job that you drag your weary body to every morning. But I thought, if I can be happy in this environment, if I can be happy in these situations that don't bring me joy, well, I'm only going to create and facilitate and magnetize more happiness in my life. So I call it the sign of the leaf. I'm in my corporate role, and I started listening to Abraham Hicks, who I just love her. And she's such an incredible foundational stone for me. And I started meditating basically for 5 minutes a day. And each lunchtime I would go out to the park across the road. And see, I was so filled with fear. I was so worried what my colleagues would think. I'd actually look up to the sun, and I was really, really meditating, but I was pretending the sun was in my eyes in case anyone saw me from the office. And I realized that this part of the day was the best time of my day. You know, being in nature, sitting in the sun, being alone, being quiet, reflecting. It made me so happy. And I picked up a leaf. It was a gum leaf. It was just a simple gum leaf that fell down from a tree. And I thought it was beautiful. And I took it back to my office and I hid it behind my desk and would take it out just in case so no one saw it. And I took it, you know, I would take it out occasionally and look at it if I was having a fearful or a stressful day. And, you know, I always say to people, you can deny your soul's journey, your innermost wants and desires, but sometimes the universe has a way of pulling you kicking and screaming if you don't adhere to your guidance system. And I was asked to leave my role, and it was terrifying, but it made me so happy. Sometimes, you know, I realize now that if the universe hadn't pushed me, I might never have jumped. And looking back as well, I was physically sick in the role. It hurt my body. My body got sick. Nothing terrible, but I didn't have a choice but to leave. And as I packed up my office and USB and a few books and a few papers, I found the leaf behind the computer, which I still have. I think somewhere I have to find it, but it was shriveled and it was dead. And I took it with me and I realized it was almost like a metaphor. It's like, God, Luisa, you're such a slow learner. If you hadn't had left, you would have turned up like that shriveled dead leaf behind your computer. I mean, I wouldn't be dead. Luisa would still be alive, but I would be a shell of the person that I ever would be or could be. So,
okay, Luisa. So
yeah.
are you living your passion?
Yes, I am. And it's, passions change. We're not locked into narrow patterns. Passions change. And once you achieve certain passions, you write another list. But it's always really important to get clear. I always say you can't hit a target if you can't see the bullseye. So it's so important to write your passions out. Yes, I'm living my passions. I am living my dream life. I'm living in my dream home. I interview these incredible light workers across the globe that in some way, I mean, I just can't believe I get to do this. It's so amazing and it's growing and growing. And not only that, I get to give back. I mean, I get a lot of emails and a lot of correspondence about how, that episode, I really thought about that. And whether it taught me about God or taught me about my son who had died, it really activated something within me. And with the guests I have on the show, people often ask, how do you get all these guests? And aside from that, how do they say yes? I don't know. I just say it's divine guidance. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I had this vision of the globe with all these lights around the globe. And I knew then that I was an ambassador for Passion Harvest. I was just the facilitator of Passion Harvest. And we were lighting up all these parts of the globe. And I do know now, and I got the term, it was called Soul Family Star Alliance. And I do know that all the guests on the show are part of my soul family. And that's why it does so well. That's why there's such a resonance. And potentially that's why they usually always say yes.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So I wanted to recircle again back and talk about a little bit about your psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I did not know that you had a son, and you did have mentioned that, and I wasn't sure if maybe you wanted to talk about that, or if that had any well, obviously it would have a lot of life-changing consequences, but how do you feel about that conversation?
About what?
Your son?
What about him?
Didn't you say you had a son who passed?
No, I mean, if people have contacted me, I was giving an example.
About a son who passed.
So that episodes inspire people or activate people or provide some comfort to people in some way if they ever had a son or a family member that's passed.
Oh, okay. I completely misheard that. So
it's
you
okay.
might want to edit.
I do this all. No. I stuff up all the time.
Okay, so let's circle back. That's what I was saying. I was like, I never heard that you had a son before. So all right, let's circle back to your psychic abilities. And this actually, I know what you referring to.
That's my phone. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. I thought I turned it off. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It'll
that
stop.
In one interview. Should I wait or should I just go ahead? It's really not that loud. I can barely hear it.
Okay, perfect. We'll just keep going.
Okay.
I do apologize.
So
I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay. This is your show after all.
Yeah. We like a bit of music. I always say Passion Harvest.
Hearing how your phone rings all the time. Now the viewers know exactly what you hear when your phone rings.
I should get a better tune.
I think that's the
sorry.
Please okay, so all right, let's go back to a discussion on your psychic abilities, because these I have been blown away by. And you had received some communications and did some channeling when we first started talking to each other.
Yeah.
And they were, of course, right up in relation with my own experiences. So to me, I got a first-hand confirmation in that one regarding, your psychic abilities. And I was, I was blown away. And I know that you've had successive situations that have been remarkable. I'm curious. Now we know that this all began when you were a child or young, and you had those, but you didn't quite understand what was going on. But as an adult, how have these served you? How do they function? And how What do you do with this remarkable ability besides, of course,
Well, I don't know if
acupuncture?
it's remarkable. I think anyone has this capability. It's a want and a desire where focus goes, energy flows. Um, and they're growing more and more because I'm interested in them. And I almost explain it like it's, um, you know, there's many dimensions that we're in and layers and levels. It's just a matter of tapping into that different level or that different layer that's not in another country or that's not in another place. It's right here, right now. I found that, working with my psychic abilities and encouraging them, and this has happened, definitely accelerated rapidly in the last year and a half. And one of the things with all my guests on the show, weird and wacky and amazing light workers, they trust themselves. And I thought, Luisa, you better start trusting yourself here with the guidance that you're receiving. So yes, incredible things happen. And what's even more amazing with my passion mentoring and my clients that I love, I've noticed I do an energy reading. I read their energy before the session, usually the day before, and it's so accurate of what's holding them back from their passions, what's holding them back from freedom, what are the elements of their life that they need to work on. And I always say with my clients, you are your own best healer. No one can ever really heal you. Someone can be a catalyst for healing and growth and change, but I only really mirror and reflect back what you need to clear, heal, and release to move forward in your life. And, when you talk about accuracies, it's amazing to see the growth of the people, and it's amazing them to see, wow, I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right. And it's not about being right. I don't mind whether I'm wrong or not, or they hadn't thought about it. But anyway, I'm digressing off the subject. I'll tell you an instance. I have connected with people that have passed on a few occasions. I think it happened when my sister died 2 years ago. And it's not scary. It's basically like someone having a conversation without you hearing them. You hear them in your head, and it's just a knowing that and you can have this whole conversation. Well, a man most recently contacted me about afterlife and said, I've interviewed all these people who had near-death experiences. I'm desperate. My son's died. What do you think? I don't know what to do. And I guess I just used my intuition, and I said, and I don't do this as a service, but my heart broke for this man. And I said, look, I'm about to meditate. I can't do it at will. Well, I don't know how to it yet, but often if I can try and connect with your son, don't give me his name. Don't tell me anything. If it can offer you some comfort, I'll try and connect with him and see if he has any messages for you. So it came very quickly and very clearly, and so quickly that I literally put my phone on record and then I typed it up for him. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. Even, minute details from a wedding ring to uncles. It was very, very, very specific. And I cried a lot. And I think, I don't cry. I shouldn't say I don't cry. I very, very rarely cry. I think we usually cry when we don't understand. And at this point in my life, well, I'm always learning. Actually, I've learned that more recently, but, and I'm always open to new learning. And I think one has to always be, but I don't really cry because I generally understand. And my heart broke for this man, and I sent him the letter, and he was blown away, and he couldn't believe it. Like, it was so accurate. And his son was giving him all these beautiful messages. And he asked me for more. And I said, I don't, that was it. I don't have any more to give. I don't have any more information. But I also was given the guidance that it wasn't only the words and the specific details, because I always ask for validation, not to make sure I'm right, but just to validate that, this is the energy entity that I'm connecting with. And I was told that it's not only the words on the piece of paper, the way it had been written was almost like a labyrinth. So the more he read it, the more it would comfort him, and the more it would connect him with his son who had passed. So that was one interesting thing.
That's incredible.
Another thing that's happened to me most recently, which is wacky and bizarre and crazy, but I'm just going with the flow and embracing this, is I've been able to talk to souls I can't do everyone. I think you have to resonate with certain frequencies. I've been able to communicate with animals very, very, very clearly. And a couple of times last week, and this is kind of strange, if I've seen people, the next day I'll get a message. So, and I know it's for them. It's almost like I liken it to picking up a telephone line. And, you know, I guess in the olden days, if you're not that young, you could have a cross line. So it's almost like a cross line. So I'm not intentionally doing it. I pick up the telephone line and I know it's a message coming through for someone else. And it's happened a couple of times and I receive it a couple of hours before, but then I'll text the person, whether it's a friend or a client or an acquaintance, and I'll say, look, I've got a message for you. And every single time so far, they've said, oh my God, I've got exactly the same message. So that's, you know, it's another validation. And I don't know where this is going. And I don't know, you know, how this will eventuate, but it's exciting. And I love helping people and I love seeing all that they can become. So, and I've also,
okay.
yeah.
That was you answered what my next question was going to be.
Oh, really? That always happens. What was it?
It's great. It was well, and you could still expand on this. You know, okay, so we have the psychic abilities that are kind of coming in, and you're realizing that you've got this incredible gift that we all have if we tap into it, like you had said, which I know to be very true. And like me, whenever it had all started, and I'm still trying to make sense of some of the stuff, and I, you know, where I go with this in my life. So with you, I guess you're kind of in the same kind of boat. You're just waiting to see where it goes, and it gets stronger and stronger as time goes on. Mm-hmm. So you, where do you see yourself? Let's say it might not be. I mean, we're both go with the flow kind of people. So that's kind of
well, I do have future memory as well. So.
Oh, you do? Okay, so give us some future memories. Where's Luisa going to be in 10 years? I know Puritan has been a word that I've heard often described.
Yes, I've been, well, two parts. I've been a side thing. I'm fascinated by ley lines, grid lines, dragon lines. So for the last year, I've been connecting and doing some work on mending the energetic lines of the earth. And I've just been going with that. And some of the experiences have been incredible, not on location, off location. But I have been mapping a location in Germany for the last year and a half. And I've got it down to within a 10-kilometer radius. And I just know I have to go to this place. I think it's going to be 2021. But someone said, why are you doing this? Why are you interested? I don't know. It's like this thing that's overtaking me. And I know I'm fascinated by this location. And for some reason, I need to go there. I do believe it's near the Cologne line, the Dragon Cologne line in Germany. But that's a complete side digress again. So future memory. I'll tell you a story. A very, very, very true story. And the reason I'm going to share this is because it's another example of how important it is to trust your intuition, trust your guidance, trust your heart. And people say, well, I can't connect with my heart. The more you try, practice makes perfect. So beginning of last year, I started having these future memories. They're not premonitions. They're very real, fragmented, fractal pieces of a reality. And I have seen past lives, and I probably won't go into that on this episode, but I'm happy to do it in another one. So I'm walking along the street, and this is not when I'm sleeping, and then I'll see a vision, a future memory of Luisa. I know it's Luisa. I know it's not a different soul in a different body. So it started, I remember I was walking through the city and I thought, oh my God, this is really bizarre. What's happening to me? And I saw myself in this car, and I'm driving along in the car. I'm very disorientated. So I'm living two lives. I'm living Luisa and a future Luisa, while I'm still walking down the street in this now. And I was in a car, and I knew I was being picked up from the airport, and I'd look out the window and I'd see rows and rows of trees. I know that we were driving a very long way, and I see a man next to me, and I thought, oh, and I knew I wasn't scared. Obviously it was very disorientating the first time it happened, but I wasn't scared. And music was playing, the windows were open. You know, I can remember minute details. I know the seats were leather. I just wasn't sure where we were going. And it kept happening, probably once a month. But sometimes I'd be in the front with this man, and I knew we were going home to some home. I didn't know where we were. I knew it was in Europe. I knew I was on the other side of I look back now knowing that I was not in the driver's seat because the left and right driving capabilities are different. And I kept having these visions. So the music was playing, the windows were open, and I believed this man to be a lover in some capacity, or we were in a relationship. And it wasn't coming from a want or desire or a need for another person. It was just very, very real. And I couldn't at will put myself in this situation. It just kind of happened. It almost is like I traveled to a different dimensional reality because I'm becoming more of the belief that past, present, future are now. We can change our past. We have our now. The most likely probable future. It can always be changed. We do have free will, but this is the most likely possible occurrence of your timeline of reality as Luisa. So the next time I'm transported to the house, and it's so weird. I'm not, my physical body is Luisa. I'm on the astral. So I'm a soul. I'm an energetic body. But I knew I was Luisa, and I could go through this house and I could walk through this house. And then, in minute detail of the house, I can see the bedroom, I can see the cupboards, and I would position myself. I don't know how this happened. I'd position myself in a cupboard as the soul of Luisa, but I think Peter Panicore talked about it. I was all seeing and all knowing. So it didn't matter that I was in a cupboard. I was still a soul. I was still an energetic matter, and I didn't have eyes, but I could see everything. I could see everything that was happening in the house. And I would see this man, the man I'd been traveling in the car with. And each time this happened, maybe 5 or 6 times over about 6 months, he'd go upstairs, up the stairs, onto the second level of the building, and calling me. I don't think he was calling Luisa, but he was calling me. I could tell he was calling my soul. So again, the man, I had no idea what he looked like in his physical form. I had no idea of his name. I grew very familiar with his soul. And so I knew it was a male. I could see his energetic body, and I knew his soul. It's almost like, a loved one, when you think back about them, you don't necessarily think about what they look like. You think about how they made you feel, and that familiarity, that's what it was. And he would call me, and I would try and call out to him to say, I'm here, but he never heard me. And then about the end of last year, which is 2019, I'm in the cupboard and he looks up and he sees me. And it was then, if we had eyes, we would have locked eyes, but we didn't have eyes, but our souls recognize each other. He recognized my soul. And I knew then that this man would come and find me. Didn't know when. I did believe it was 2020. So after that, as I said, I couldn't do this at will. I was just Luisa now one day, and then I was a future Luisa living a future soul astral projection. And it wasn't when I was sleeping necessarily. This could be when I'm typing on the computer or walking down the street or sitting in the park. And then the next time that it happened, about 6, 7, 8 times, I would be transported to his room. He'd be asleep. So I knew his consciousness, his body was asleep. And I gave the man this name, Edward, knowing that his name was not Edward. But, we tend in our humanists to give spirit guides or people or souls names. And it's just what happened. And I would go and see Edward, and I would kiss him on the cheek, and I would whisper in his ear, Edward, come and find me. I don't know why I was doing this. I just knew I had to do it. And then I would curl up next to him and go to sleep. This happened about 7 or 8 times. And I just knew this is a future memory. This was very, very real. I saw many other things, which I won't necessarily go into because right now. But so, I want to say this is about knowing. 2 weeks ago, I got an email. And I get a lot of emails, and everyone that's listening, thank you so much. I love the emails, and I really appreciate the feedback. And my admin skills aren't always amazing. Yes, they're pretty good, and I always get back to you. So give me a few days to get back to you, but I really do appreciate all the support and correspondence from all of you. So I get this email from this man, and it talks about his attributes and what he's done, and it's kind of like a copy and paste from a dating site. And I think, oh, okay, okay. But then he goes into his heart, and I do believe in synchronicities. I very, very much do. And he talks about, I might, I've had an NDE. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be recorded, but I might be able to help you on your quest. This is just as I was about to reply and say, thank you very much, but for the offer to meet up on Zoom. He was in another country. I'm very busy at this point, but when he talked about quest, I'd just done an interview with Diana Durham, who talked about the quest for the Holy Grail, the King Arthur Chronicles, which is an incredible book. And her show hasn't been released yet, but it will be released shortly. And the quest for the Holy Grail is the golden chalice. And the golden chalice is the secret of life, the secret of love, the secret of birth and death, the secret of eternity, the secret of everything. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go with this and reply to him and say, you know what, yes, I'll meet for a Zoom link. And we corresponded. But that night I went to sleep, didn't sleep all night. And I got up in the morning, and I can ask my guidance. I don't know whether you want to call it spirit guide, soul, higher consciousness. And I always now with practice get very, very clear, definite answers. It's usually a yes or a no, but it's very, very clear and very, very accurate. So I asked what it was. And the more I progressed, I almost get the questions to ask. It's like they're pushing me to ask the questions, which is kind of bizarre, but it is. And so, I asked, what is it? Why couldn't I sleep? Why was I thinking about this person? I'm so complete and I'm so living a passionate life. And what is it? This is really strange. Him talking about the quest, and I didn't know I had a quest. And so I'm asking all these questions, and I asked this ridiculous question that, is utterly stupid. I thought utterly stupid. And I asked the question, I said, is this man Edward? And the answer came back as yes. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. This can't be true. And I asked and asked again. And I kept getting the answer back as yes. I was utterly freaked out, by the way. So I asked about other men, not that I was necessarily interested in others, but I asked, I said, could this be Edward? It always came back as a no. And then I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm just not ready. It's such a shock. And, it's one thing to meet in the astral and meet souls, but, to have this physical manifestation. And I've realized now I'm such a powerful manifester. But, yes, it's one thing to talk telepathically and connect, but when it comes into the physical form, it's a bit of a shock. So we'd agreed for a week later to meet for a Zoom meeting, and I was nervous and anticipating it. But the night before I was talking to his soul, not physically talking, telepathically talking. And often souls are very different from our personality. The personality is a construct, a coping mechanism we use to live in this world that we pass along on our journey. And it was a very clear guidance. His soul said to me, he's contacted you for a reason. And he's contacted you because obviously the soul knew, but he wanted his consciousness to know, this man. He's contacted you because he wants to know the question. He has a question to ask you. Are you the person I saw in the cupboard? Are you the person that came to me at night to ask to find me? And his soul said, obviously the answer is yes, it was me. And I replied, I can't do that. There's no way I'm going to do that. How could I possibly do that? Are you crazy? So I'm fretting about it, thinking about it. And I realized, I preach passion, and I preach, finding your freedom. And I preach all of these incredible things. And I thought, Luisa, if you do this, this is the ultimate surrender. This is the most vulnerable you'd ever been. This is the culmination of everything you've come to be in this life so far. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter his answer. It didn't matter. Well, it didn't. I would have liked the right answer, but it didn't matter at the end of the day, because I would be offering this man my heart and my soul and the deep depths of my being to him. I didn't know him. I didn't know his personality. But if I did this, it was not determined. My happiness wouldn't be determined on his response, because we can never be responsible for another person. We can't be responsible for how they react. We can only deliver our message, which is what it's all about. And if we stay true to our heart and true to our honesty and integrity, at the end of the day, it's how you showed up. It's about the journey. And so we met on Zoom and we chatted, and I'm so nervous, and I'm thinking, Luisa, you've got to do this. And I said, there's something, he told me about his NDE, which was very brief, and we chatted and we had a great time, and there was a lot of chemistry. And then I said, I have something to tell you. And I literally can't remember even the whole conversation, but I told him everything. And it was a relief. It was an utter relief. So the reason I'm telling you this, and it was a very personal exchange. I was offering my heart and my soul. This was my gift to him. This was the ultimate gift, and I wanted nothing in return. You see, I came from a place of, I was complete. I didn't want a partner. I didn't want a partner because I had a neediness within inside me. I did it because it was just a pure love. I did it because I wasn't lacking, and I didn't need a reward for what I was doing. That was my energetic exchange, my gift to him. And so I did it. And it was the most vulnerable, the most utter surrendering thing I'd ever done in my life. So my moral of the story is, trust your intuition, do what you believe to be true with honesty and integrity. And it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's scary. And, we are human. We live in there's always fear, and fears come up. And like me, once you get through one fear, and I thought I was over that, another thing pops up. And if we can ride the currents, if we can ride the rip, I'm an ocean swimmer as well. I forgot to mention that, but, I know very well, and I don't always adhere to it. You never fight a rip. You can only accept it, surrender it to it, and it takes you out, and then you can swim back into shore. But if we can ride those currents and acknowledge them and love, and I'm learning to love that part of Luisa that's fearful, that humanist part of Luisa that has these fears and sometimes feels unworthy, and sometimes is afraid, and sometimes doesn't want to lose something which she doesn't even have. And, the Luisa that gets angry sometimes, if we can learn and love those parts of ourselves, we can become a much more complete person.
Wow. You do know there's going to be a part 2 to this interview at some point, and we're going to have to see what goes on with that story. I'm particularly, I want to know. So, because I know that you've talked to me about some of that. So that was, that's exciting. Well, Luisa, this was a lot of good information. I certainly hope that we've done good for the viewers. Is there anything that you would like to add? I know I'm going to get questions of what happened.
Yeah,
right. So I'm saying, so you could probably expect there's going to be some requests for part 2. Do you want to talk about what
Sure.
happened?
In a brief summary, sure. And as I said, it's not determinant on the outcome. It was all of me, and it was my utter surrendering gift to him. I knew he didn't consciously know that, but he felt something, and something stirred in him, and he was very appreciative. And he said, I've never had a conversation like that. And we've been corresponding, so it's still to be continued, but obviously there's travel restrictions, international travel restrictions. So that's it for now, but it will definitely be to be continued.
That's very exciting. And well, cool. So if there, like I said, if I'm certainly out of questions, if there's nothing that's springing to mind, but if there's anything that you want to add to this, anything that you feel that you want to get out there, and like I said, I'm always available to do a part 2 or whatever the viewers want out, more information or whatever. Is there anything?
Yeah. God, I always put my interviewees on the spot like this. I have to be more mindful.
Apologize. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, not at all. I guess just going off the back of that, we do create a reality. We are responsible for our thoughts, words, and actions, and we can change the way we perceive our reality, and our reality can change through that process in any minute. So if you do go into a fear-based state, or you're becoming negative, pivot, change, and don't think about it again. And don't say, I'm not going to think about that thing. I'm not going to think about that thing. Think about marshmallows. It doesn't matter, because trust me, if you're happy right now, or if you're in a joyful state, you know that the next moment of your reality, which is constantly changing and evolving, it's just that we keep seeing it as the same in our two-dimensional sight, processed to the third dimensional by our brain, but that's another story. But really, if you're feeling fearful and happy, do something that makes you feel good. Do something that lights you up. Go for a walk, watch a movie, kiss your husband, hug your child, take your dog for a walk. And we really need to take responsibility that we do create our reality. It's not that hard. It is very hard, but it's pretty simple. And it's so important to follow your passions. And it's so important to do what lights you up, because the more of that will come into this magnetic universe in which we live. And I honestly believe that the more grateful we are, the more we will find gratitude, the more things we will find to be grateful for, the more passionate we are, the more things we find to be passionate about. And passion is changing and evolving like life, because nothing remains stagnant. And if we can take all those lessons that we learned along the way as the greatest teaching tools that were ever given to us, and remove that victim mentality and be utterly grateful and try and find joy, even if it's looking up at the sky or seeing a bird and taking note of synchronicities, you do have the power to change your life. You really, really do. And the life you want is far greater than the life you're living now. That was my big pivotal moment. The life I wanted for myself was far greater than the life I was living. So I took responsibility and I got happy. And I followed my passions and I followed what felt good. And I always believe, I truly, truly, and there's no exception to the rule, the universe will always support you if you follow this methodology. So thank you so much for listening to me and hearing pieces of my heart and pieces of my story. And I hope in some way it has inspired you or resonated with you or activated something within you that you may step a little lighter today. So thank you. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you very much. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, you need to come to the Passion Host podcast to find out more information. And also, you could find more of these interviews, including a new website at passionharvest.com, which looks great, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And like we had said at the beginning, if you enjoyed this interview, please subscribe. And thank you, my guest, Luisa. Thank you for coming on Passion Harvest today. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And that's all. So, okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye for now. If you like this episode, please do subscribe for weekly passionate, inspirational interviews. If this interview has ignited your own curiosity about what passion and freedom is, I'm now offering one-on-one limited passion mentoring sessions. Head on over to the Passion Harvest website for more details. Click the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.